We can give it a second.
We got to give it a sec?
Yeah, I mean, just in case people go on to tune in.
No, that's fair. Let me look.
Now they're hearing this crap.
No, it's all good.
All right, lead on in. Go strong.
Let me juice these numbers real quick. Hold on. Hell yeah. All right. I guess we can start the recording part of it. Welcome to those hanging out on the live. Welcome to episode, what is this, 149 of Clips and Dip. We are fully back. Part of the 2 and 3 Hoops Empire triumphant return. I think the Lob the Jam the Pod had an episode yesterday, so we're just giving it to you from all angles on the Clippers offseason. I am Chuck Mockler, joined by Adam Osland, Will Updike. We got a lot of awesome stuff to talk about. We're going to be answering your questions. Michael Winger's out as the GM. There's rumors to go over, but the people really want to know, most importantly, how are you two doing? Will, I'll start with you. It's been a while since the fans have seen you. How are you doing, buddy?
Has it been a while? I feel like the last time they saw me was the last time they saw everybody.
Well, you know.
I'm doing good, man. Really boring Western Conference Finals.
Yep.
You know, would have been nice to be a part of that, but maybe another time. You know,
would it have?
We could have helped the boring factor, or we would have made it much more exciting.
I mean, if the Clippers were in the Western Conference Finals, Denver's donezo. So
that's true. That's very true. Adam, how have you been? You were in Tennessee. You've been globetrotting. Some think that's globetrotting.
Been out and about a little bit, taking some vacation time, kind of like the Lakers are now. So it's been good. It's good to be back with you guys. I know I missed the last show where Joseph and Carl were on, so I missed a lot. But I'm glad we got this one today and a little bit of breaking news just about a half hour ago.
Yeah, let's get into that before we get into these awesome questions. People sent us questions over on Twitter at ClippersPod. Come hang out. It's a good time over there. So Michael Winger has agreed to become the president of Monumental Basketball, which delivers him full leadership of the Washington Wizards as well as their G League affiliate, the Go-Go.
And WNBA team, like everybody in Washington except the Generals. Like,
I mean, it might it might include that. But what this means for the Clippers is a lot of people kind of thought with there's these Bob Myers rumors that he's out at Golden State. A lot of Clippers fans now just want Bob Myers to come to the Clippers. But Will, correct me if I'm wrong in this thinking. We have Lawrence Frank. I don't think Bob Myers is going to come be the number 2 to Lawrence Frank. That doesn't.
I don't really see that as being a big move in terms of changing the Clippers, what the Clippers have. And we've talked about this. There definitely are some clear issues on the roster. I don't know that you need Bob Myers to really figure those out. They kind of point themselves out like a sore thumb. And I am still of the opinion, man, that it's just I don't think GMing is what's going to save this franchise, really. I mean, there are moves and tweaks to be made, to be sure.
Yeah.
But if you only have it just still comes back to, for me, if 66% of your payroll plays 33% of the games, I don't know what Bob Myers is going to do for that.
That's fair.
Give everybody some lemon water. I don't know.
Well, I would say if you can get Bob Myers while keeping Lawrence Frank, you do that. I don't know if that's a
seems
possibility.
Like too many cooks,
though.
Man. That seems like too many cooks.
Yeah, so it's 2 head GM guys.
I just like the idea of having a bigger
yeah.
brain trust isn't a bad thing. If everyone's thinking the same thing, nobody's thinking. I think it's good to have some checks and balances. Now, to be clear, Bob Myers didn't draft Steph Curry. He didn't draft Klay Thompson. He did draft Draymond Green. He brought in Steve Kerr, Andre Iguodala, Kevin Durant, Jordan Poole. He's made a lot of great moves, but he wasn't the GM for the Splash Brothers. He was the understudy still. I think though, it's not just about the name. It's about what he's been able to accomplish with the Golden State, the most recent dynasty in the NBA. So I think if you have a chance to bring him in, you got to look into that. I don't know if he's the panacea, to Will's point, the cure-all for the Clippers. I don't think any one
panacea
person is. I can see the nickname coming now. The wheels are turning with Will. Let's get things started here.
I can't spell panacea.
Yeah. I was like, what is that?
But somebody who's a cure-all for this Clippers team, I don't think it's any one person. I don't think it's any one player. I think it's more about just a little bit of good luck, some good fortune, some health. We're seeing that in these playoffs, there are 2 teams in conference finals appearances, or there was, with the Lakers being a 7th seed and the Miami Heat being the 8th seed. And I said before the season, no team has won a championship that was outside the top 3 in the last 30 years, outside the Houston Rockets back in 95. And the Miami Heat are likely going to be in the NBA Finals, taking on the Denver Nuggets as an 8th seed. So the landscape of the NBA has changed. And I guess my point is you got to have some good fortune along the way. Miami was almost bounced in the play-in tournament. They lost the first game to Atlanta and then won against the Chicago Bulls. So a lot of things have to go right. That's what we're hoping is on the docket coming up for the Clippers this next season.
You got a comment on the chat. Alan said, don't think Myers will retain Ty. I mean, it's possible. I just don't think that that's the GM's decision. And I do think that if you're Steve Ballmer or whoever else in the brain trust is making these decisions,
right?
If you're staring at the decision of either getting rid of Lawrence Frank or getting rid of Ty Lue, looking at the body of work between the 2 guys so far, I don't know that Bob Myers fits into that equation.
Yeah, well, there's also talk too, like the Ty Lue thing, which kind of goes into our next like rumor thing a little bit. Like he might be seeking an extension or something like that. No one really asked about this in the questions, but I thought that was interesting. Where are you guys at? Do you think that's real, or do you think that's maybe more his representation, which is Clutch? I'm not into the whole like Clutch conspiracy thing. They just want the most money for their guys, which I don't think is that revolutionary of an idea. Do you think with all the openings, that's just kind of posturing by them to see if the Clippers would entertain an extension with Ty? Because he's got 2 more years left. And then it's whatever. So do you guys want Ty back? Adam, do you think this was just kind of posturing on Ty Lue's representation front?
I think when you have a head coach that would have a job tomorrow, if he wasn't with the Clippers, that's someone you need to retain. Everyone else in the NBA seems to know the worth of Coach Lue. I think the Clippers do as well. But you don't want to see him in a 7-game series on the other side of the court going against you. And for the shortcomings and a lot of disgruntled members of Clipper Nation this season with how it went, and there were a lot of negatives and a lot of downsides to how this season went. I think the biggest strength Ty Lue has is in a 7-game series, he gives you the best chance to win. And so I think you got to hold on to that guy no matter what. And I don't know who you'd replace him with that would be better out there either. What's your solution if you're moving on from him? Is Nick Nurse a better coach? He's had a history with Kawhi Leonard, of course, but I like Coach Lue in a 7-game series over pretty much anyone. Eric Spoelstra, probably regarded as the best coach in the NBA right now. A little bit of recency bias there, but he's been that good for a while. Outside of that,
is he available? Spo, what are you doing?
Spo,
are you busy right now?
Yeah. Well, his understudy and Dan Craig is on the coaching staff with the Clippers, the defensive coordinator.
Do we think it's maybe something where he's got 2 years left? I'm thinking the extension comes into play next year, right? Like they see what they can do with Kawhi and PG and, at least one more time. And then Will, you're nodding. Like if that goes well, then you extend them out. Because right now it matches up with their contracts.
I don't know about this. Like maybe this is the preamble to setting something up for a potential extension. I would say like this offseason, that seems a little premature. Really from either side to either expect an extension with 2 years remaining or to go ahead and extend one once again with those 2 years remaining, just because I don't know how it all works out in a legal or fiscal sense. Like once they have another job, blah, 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 blah. But it just.
Can we get the HR perspective in here? What's he got to do 10-9 wise?
Things move. I mean, things do move fast in the NBA. So I think that, we talked about going in this offseason. I said I would be very surprised if Ty Lue wasn't on the bench for this team next season. And I don't really see any of this changing that. I would be a little surprised if they did the extension this early. It just doesn't doesn't really seem necessary. And yeah, I don't know. But to Adam's point, I think that I know a lot of people are kind of like over the Ty Lue sort of experience to a certain extent. I just think like the question that you have to ask yourself is like when you're looking in the field, when you're like looking at the field of available people, because it's not just about getting the guy out. You have to replace them with somebody usually.
Right.
Are you taking, in a 7-game series, are you taking one member of that field over Ty Lue? Is that something that you would be 100% comfortable with? And I got to be honest, I'm not really seeing it right now. And, I haven't watched as much Raptors since Kawhi's been gone. I mean, they've had their own issues roster construction wise, blah, 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 and on down the line. But I think, just to make it, just for Clippers fans, the Doc Rivers firing, which came which came pretty
So
quickly,
fast.
pretty quickly. And by all reports, they were ready to announce that even sooner. It seemed like from conversations than when they did make the official announcement. I think that was a situation where you could pretty objectively look at the field and say, I think I would be fine with, a couple of different candidates versus this guy if it comes to that in the 7-game series.
And now the Suns might hire Doc, which I hope happens. I hope the Suns hire Doc. Please hire Doc. I hope the Mavs
You think the
Doc.
locker room's bad now? Buckle up, buddy.
Yeah.
I think they end up going with Nick Nurse, who I do think is the best available candidate out there with the least amount of baggage and drawbacks. But every coach has their blind spot. Every coach has their downside. It's just, how fatal is it? Do you want a guy who's better in the regular season or better in the postseason? I think that's what the conclusion was between Doc and somebody like Ty Lue. You want more of a strategist in a 7-game series. And even though it was a frustrating regular season and ultimately injuries derailed things again for them, felt like most of Clipper Nation believed if they were healthy, they were going to bounce Phoenix in the first round. And I would have loved to have seen this
even
team
kind of
against
healthy.
the Denver Nuggets. Even with just Kawhi Leonard, I think they were going to take down the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. A couple more rumors, and then we'll get to some questions. Apparently, there's an NBA insider who thinks that the Clippers would be a landing spot for Chris Paul. We talked about this a bit on Twitter the other week. No one wants this from the Clippers side, fandom-wise, it seems. I don't see how adding a guy who's going to be maybe injured during the regular season helps this particular era of the Clippers.
Right? I feel like in the NBA, there's two extremes where ways to read smoke signals, right? Like in some instances, a lot of smoke means, there's probably fire. There's probably something to
Marcus Morris to the Clippers trade.
Exactly. And then there is the other opposite end where it's like, oh, wow, a lot of smoke must mean that nothing is happening in this direction. And we saw that as recently as this season with Fred VanVleet. And, we kind of thought things were much closer than maybe they really ever were. I would be absolutely shocked by this move.
Dude,
I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it.
No. He makes too much money.
Yeah, I don't know how I don't know how you even justify it contract wise, to be perfectly honest with you. Even if you're like, I think that we could get a little bit more out of Chris Paul. I think that, if you believe that this could be a better situation, if you believe that he is, the tone setter, kind of regular season guy, which maybe you can talk yourself into, I don't know, but like just getting to the number, I think is going to prove to be just too difficult.
The only way I'd see it being feasible is it would include some combination of Marcus Morris, Rocco, and Eric Gordon, something like that. And Phoenix just wanted to unload CP3 because they're having a lot of turnover there, and DeAndre Ayton could get moved as well. Maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I wouldn't hate it for the right price, but he's making $30 million and he just turned 38 and he just had another injury riddled season, and guys who are injury prone in their prime aren't magically getting healthier as they get older, regardless of your diet and switching over to eating vegan style like CP3. I mean, I know a lot of people have soured over him since he took off a Clipper jersey with how things ended, with some of the antics on the court, with them going up against him in the 2021 Western Conference Finals and how that ended. But I think if he was on the Clippers roster in a different role in the right spot and they're not able to bring back Russell Westbrook.
See, this is how you talk yourself into really bad decisions. For any listeners or viewers, this is textbook gaslighting yourself.
I'm just saying there's always a certain amount of conditions there that make a situation seem a little bit more
He's not that
attainable.
bad. He's not that bad.
He'll be healthy with us.
He's better.
He's addicted to going to the finals, bro.
Look, if you're not giving up much at all to get Chris Paul, I think you do it. If you're not really giving up anything,
but that's impossible.
That's the trade that I put out there. If they're willing to just dump him for salary, if they don't think highly of him anymore, I don't think it's that crazy.
I don't know. We'll see. I hope we don't get Chris Paul. So for this next rumor, this also goes to our first question. There's a rumor that the Blazers want an elite small forward and are willing to move the number 3 pick and Anthony Simons for it. Noted, one of Will Updike's favorite guys, Anthony Simons. Jesse Beer asked us, do you think the Clippers should explore Paul George to Portland for the number 3 pick and Simons? Maybe the Clips then flip the number 3 pick somewhere for another player. Let's start with the first part. Do we think the Clippers should explore Paul George to Portland for the number 3 pick?
No.
And Anthony Simons?
No.
Thinking no?
No, man.
They'd have to add also. They also have to add Nurkic, right? Because of salary. Like it'd be Nurk, Simons, and the number 3 pick. So
I mean, I guess I get the availability. These are just both two players that don't align with where the Clippers are at right now. I mean, if it's to set up another move wherein you move Kawhi as well, then sure. I mean, that's a great start. That's a great base. You still have to make salaries work, which has Simmons extension kicked in? I'm not sure. But anyways, if everything else stays largely the same and that's the move, I don't really see that in no way gets the Clippers any closer to their goal.
Yeah, he's at 24. So he's at 24, then 25 point.
Okay, so it has kicked in. All right, cool. So you still got to come up with another
12.
Yeah, in salary.
Marcus Morris, come on down.
Unless it's a precursor to a bigger move where they blow the whole thing up, it doesn't make a lot of sense because does that move,
if that's what happens,
get you closer to a championship? Having Anthony Simons and whoever the number 3 pick becomes next to Kawhi Leonard.
And a number 3 pick is just not getting reps on this team as currently constructed. Like they can't find playing time for them. Like it doesn't make any damn sense to me. Unless it's
tired of it.
Unless it's the precursor to another move.
Yeah. So what about the idea that you move 3 for another player? But we don't have any contracts.
So you're just downgrading is what I'm saying. Yeah. You're getting PG and
you're taking weird value.
Worse player who's like younger is going to have a lot of issues, in their first real postseason run, assuming the Clippers can even get that far with a nucleus of that. And then you're going to flip the number 3 pick, which is worthless essentially after you've drafted it. Once again, it just doesn't get us any closer.
I like Anthony Simons a lot in the right situation, but you mentioned his playoff experience. He's been in 15 games total, averaging 5 points per game. As good as he has looked offensively, I think he averaged around 20 last year, an efficient 20, but he doesn't offer a lot on the defensive end. You're going to have a steep drop off there, giving up Paul George on that side of the ball. You're creating new problems and you're not getting any closer. You're getting further away from winning a championship this season. As much as you want to say, well, Paul George is injury prone, Kawhi is injury prone, and those are the facts at this point. But at least with them, if they're available, you have a chance. Anthony Simons could be available for all 82 and all the playoff games, and you're not winning. That's the truth. If you're giving up Paul George to get him, you already know what your ceiling is. So that's the difference right there to me. And I think he's one of the better young players. He has a ton of talent offensively, but it's mostly one-dimensional right now with just his scoring ability. He's not a great playmaker, and he can't do much on the defensive end.
Yeah, it's a swing that like you guys said, if we did this trade and then moved Kawhi, then we're just in full like rebuild mode. Basically, we've just instituted like a really quick rebuild mode with a coach who, call me crazy, I don't think Ty Lue wants to coach a team that just traded away the guys that haven't really been available since he's been there anyway for rookies.
And what does this mean for Kawhi, who wanted to play with Paul George? Like,
Right.
if you're keeping Kawhi,
Well, the FO is heartless, so I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just how they
Hear me out on this one.
What do we
Is
got?
Norm Powell an elite small forward?
Some say you could skew that. You could do Norm for fucking Simons in the 3. Yeah, call it in. If it works per the rules, call it in right now.
I know Portland's had a lot of turnover with the front office, but I think they're pretty familiar with Norman Powell and who he is as a player.
Maybe that one gets lost in the shuffle. They're just so busy. They're like, sure. Yeah, no, that seems good.
Who's this Robert Covington guy?
This is rookie. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Then they make it happen. I like that idea, Will. Coming up, we got a whole bunch of mailbag questions to go over. We're talking draft people. We're talking Adam's offseason regiment. We got a question about, which is going to be interesting. But first, there are advertisements. So if those have been loud for you, as they have been for some people, go ahead and turn it down. We got ads coming up and more questions. Ads coming up in 3, 2, 1.
All right, we're back. We're on Clips and Dip. We are live right now. We're live on Twitter, live on YouTube. You can listen to this podcast wherever you get podcasts. Anyways, we're taking some questions right now. A little bit of a mailbag madness minute. But before we get into these questions that Charles so thoughtfully put into the rundown, thank you, Charles. Ex Mongo Project wants to know if Boston falls, is anyone there a realistic get?
If Boston falls, Ex Mongo still believes. I don't know. Do you think? I think they're firing their coach before they trade anybody.
I agree.
They don't like Missoula.
But for the right price, it seems like Jaylen Brown could be dangled at this point. If they lose in Game 5 at home or lose poorly, even that just them extending the series isn't going to mask anything that's gone on there. I don't think they should. If you have two guys that are still, I think, both under 28 years of age, with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum at the wing position.
Tatum's like 16, right?
Yeah, 16 plus 3 to get to 19. He's only 19. Yeah. When you have two elite players at that position, I would keep them together and stay the course and run it back. But I could see them being in Boston in that big market. They've won one championship, I think, over the last about 40 years now. In 2008, they're growing impatient there. I would make a call and see what's going on with Jaylen Brown. The other guy is Grant Williams. I know he fired up Jimmy Butler because that's the only way Jimmy Butler would play really hard out there is if he had some guy talking S to him. But Grant Williams, who I think we talked about him before, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. So he's very much attainable this summer. I don't know what price he's going to be at, but he's someone who plays bigger than his size. He plays what did Lawrence Frank or L. Frank talk about it as a size up, can defend a size up or a position up. He's someone that can do that. I like him.
Yeah, his qualifying offer would be $8.4 million, and I bet he can get a lot more than that. So I wonder if the Clips can afford him. Yeah, Jaylen Brown, I think Marcus Smart would never come. I don't think we could get Marcus Smart, but I would love him in a Clippers uniform. He'd be a nice Clip to have. Will, do you think there's anyone from Boston that's a realistic get? Blake?
If we got Al Horford, I would get the jersey immediately.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, Horford goes
that
to
shooter.
What does he bring? Yeah.
As a realistic, those aren't parts that I'm really that interested in picking. To be honest, Grant Williams, I think there's something there. I think it's a little out of what we can afford to pay.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I agree with you there. Yeah.
How do you feel about Jaylen Brown? If there was some type of trade available with Paul George?
a
PG
younger
for Jaylen Brown?
a younger, more beta Paul George. I'll pass. Thanks though.
That came out of nowhere. God damn. Oh wow.
An even worse handle. You think PG
have...
turnovers are bad? Wait till you got Jaylen Brown handling the ball,
hurling the ball into the 5th row and into it down.
I like Jaylen Brown as a human being, and I like him as a piece. I think that he, if Boston does decide to move on to him, which I think is maybe a knee-jerk reaction to a team that, you're just meeting a team that's really hitting their stride in the
and
heat.
they went through really random turmoil.
They're like, teams sometimes catch fire at the right time, and that is happening right now for the Heat. And I think that it would be maybe a little premature to make that move. I think for where the Clippers are at right now, and looking at, if they need to if they're going to try to keep this nucleus intact, there's obviously no way to get Jaylen Brown. Moving Paul George, I mean, you're still going to have to give up assets to make that work because of the age discrepancy. You're locked into a long-term contract that's even more dollars per year, I believe. So that would be a pass for me.
I think he's due for an extension, which could bring him up to a $300 million player. That's something he's been angling for over this past season, and he's looked a little bit disgruntled over that. I don't know. It's interesting, at least. I like him a lot as a player, and it increases your window because he's the younger version, I guess, of Paul George, if you want to put it like that.
That's true. Drift to the Music asks, should the Clippers run it back by re-signing Russ and Plum, make a big swing trade at the draft, or tear it down, get assets while you can, and start over? Cough, trade the 3rd pick and Simons. Cough. And then Wes Choate had a similar question. Would it be so bad if we just ran it back? Morris is the only question mark since he wasn't getting much run in the playoffs. I'm going to say, for the Drift to the Music thing, I don't know if we can re-sign Russ. I don't know what a big swing trade at the draft looks like. If I'm being honest, I don't know what that looks like for the Clippers. So I think we have to do a combination of and then what Wes Choate said, which is run it back. Morris isn't the only question mark, though. We need to move Morris. We need to move Rocco. We need to move Batum. Other than that, hopefully we can re-sign Plum. But the way that this front office works, I think Clippers fans should be more prepared for that scenario than for some draft night heroics. You know what I mean? Or like messiness. I just don't see it becoming as dramatic as people maybe want it to be this offseason.
Yeah, I don't think so. To drift to the Music's question, I like the B option of making a big swing at the draft. I just don't. I don't know that.
It feels like B and C are the same option because the big swing.
I don't actually think that those are the same options. So B, like, make a big swing at the draft. I don't know that the Clippers are there yet. I think if they're going to keep one of the superstars, I would assume at least until the trade deadline that they keep both of them. I think. Once again, you can talk yourself into, haven't had enough time healthy together. They've had one healthy postseason together, and circumstances beyond their control really sort of eroded that whole thing. So I think that we're like the most realistic outcome is probably to run it back, but I don't know that we can re-sign Russ and Plum.
Right.
I like the idea of a big swing. I like the idea of shopping Paul George. I don't super see the move right now that like a team is actually like willing to take on for a player of the same caliber. I think that's going to be really difficult. So I think that my version of running back doesn't necessarily have to involve Russ and Plum. I think
it's just hard to do. We just can't offer Russ enough.
I don't know. The thing that I keep coming back to is the talent is still there. You just need to consolidate and upgrade at a couple of things. So that to me is still basically a run it back with just changing the supporting cast, which is definitely something that needs to happen. It's not going to happen. And I like the idea of a teardown. I still think that maybe it's premature just because of sort of like the bad taste, if you're a GM, in your mouth, like that you get of that you had from this season of Kawhi and Paul George. Like I think people are a little less. I don't think you're selling there at your most leverage or advantageous position.
Yeah, if you're committed to still trying to win a championship in the 2-1-3 era, then making a big swing, even if you're sacrificing more draft picks, the 30th this year, the 2030 first round pick, and maybe Terrence Mann to make the trade work, that I can buy that. That makes sense to me. If you're going after Bradley Beal or Karl Anthony Towns or Zach LaVine or Damian Lillard, even though it looks like they're doubling down and trying to get him a better supporting cast, those would be the guys that I would guess are most available that, realistically big trades and big moves could be made for. But I like what Will said about consolidating talent. I was against that coming into this season because I thought they would use their depth more. But after seeing them not play Robert Covington and not play some guys heavier minutes that could have used them, if they're not going to do that, then you might as well try to upgrade at positions and depth be damned. Because the other situation with that is if you take away some of their more veteran depth, then it forces you to have to play younger guys and to get younger, and Brandon Boston to get some minutes and Amir Coffey to get some minutes. And they hardly played at all last season. And I think with the new cap restrictions that are out there, it's more important than ever to have somewhat of a youth movement, to have guys on cheaper contracts who are playable, who you're able to get out there on the court and get reps with and not have the wheels come off. Because, Brandon Boston's one of the best G League players. There's something there with him. I think at some point, rubber's going to meet road, and they're going to have to play some of these young guys, but it would certainly expedite the process if they traded away some of the more veteran talent on this team that adds that depth. I'm down for consolidating. I think it makes a lot more sense now.
We got asked kind of about consolidating. Resist 90 Respect offered up two options. Ayton and Karl Anthony Towns stock is low. He said for good reason, but we need a big man who fits our team better after a consolidation trade. He also said that Jonathan Isaac looks elite. He gets the injury risk, but he's young. He's one of few who's shown he can guard Giannis. Should we target him? I think we all kind of feel the same way about Cat, don't we? Or wait, Adam, do you like Cat? Do you want Cat on the team? Between Cat or Ayton, who would you want the Clippers to make a play for, I guess?
I think Ayton makes less money right now and probably is a better fit overall. If you're not keeping Ivica Zubac and you're just bringing in Karl Anthony Towns, I think that changes your team pretty dramatically because he's not a great defender. Could he get better in that area? I don't know. He's 27 years of age. He probably, this is who he is at this point. DeAndre Ayton, though, his value is so down in
Cat's
Phoenix.
Also an expiring. Cat's on the last year of a 5 for 158.
So then you got to make a really big decision.
Yeah. If you trade for Cat, you're going to give him the max, which you can call it if we're giving Karl Anthony Towns the max. After like that, we're not going to win anything.
And look, he's another good friend of PG-13's. They brought in Reggie Jackson. They brought in, John Wall, guys who are friends with him. But probably that contract situation, you just mentioned it, makes the decision a lot easier for me. DeAndre Ayton is more of a need. We saw in that playoff series, Ivica Zubac he didn't have a good round.
I was wrong. Yes, he's signed. I forgot. He signed the 4-year, $224 million contract that kicks in 24-25. So you're paying him 50, 54, 58, 62 if you were to trade for Karl Anthony Towns.
That just upends the dynamic of your team so much, too. Aside from the cap situation, he's a stretch 5 type, a stretch 4 maybe.
He's a stretch 5 who doesn't defend.
Yeah, he's not a rim protector. That's not who he's been. DeAndre Ayton would be the more seamless fit. And I think whoever gets him next after his time emphasis on time in Phoenix with kind of how he's been treated there and how things haven't worked out. Of course, Monty Williams is gone now, so maybe the next head coach gets a better opportunity with DeAndre Ayton to see what he can bring out of him.
Sure.
But he's 18-10 already without, I think, being fully realized and optimized, and is someone who could be a great innings eater during the regular season. When one of your stars or both of your stars are out, DeAndre Ayton could be eaten. He could be getting 25 and 12 type of games out there and just be really reliable in that way. As much as we like to think about Ivica Zubac and his potential offensively, DeAndre Ayton's kind of there in a lot of different ways for his shortcomings and not playing up to his physicality level that he's capable of a lot of the times. I do think there's more to him as a player, and whoever gets him after Phoenix, he may light the world on fire for a little bit because he's just away from the Suns and whatever's going on there with conflicts and personality differences.
Yeah, Ayton on the Clips wouldn't be bad. I mean, you put him, if we keep in Kawhi and PG in that scenario, the defense is pretty nice for those three. Any thoughts on Jonathan Isaac?
Oh, I didn't give my thoughts.
Oh, my bad. Thoughts. We know you hate Karl Anthony Towns, which is totally fair.
Yeah, we talked a bunch about Karl Anthony Towns after he was on the podcast by Paul George. And that's just he's not my kind of guy. I don't think that really helps the team.
Right.
I guess maybe if you in a scenario where you still keep PG and Kawhi, like I still, I don't know. I'm just not seeing that as a fit.
It's so much money.
I'm just not
for
seeing
Karl
that
Anthony Towns.
For Ayton, in a world where cap doesn't exist and we don't have to give up either one of Paul George or Kawhi, I kind of love it. I kind of like,
right.
I love it.
I love it.
But that's just not the situation. There's no way we can get to that $50 million a year or whatever number. And like looking at it, for $50 million a year, is he 5 times better than Ivica Zubac? I mean, he's kind of been benched in the playoffs now in back-to-back runs for his team. So I don't know. He also like demands the ball a lot. He kind of, he gets pouty when he's not involved in the offense.
Yeah. He's not a quiet center.
Yeah. And I think that could present issues. And just that's just an astronomical amount of money if you still have like Paul George and Kawhi. Like
how much is Ayton making? How much longer is his deal? They just gave it to him this last summer.
He just got on that just below max deal.
It's like 150 million.
32 mil next year, 34 the year after, 35 and a half the year after that.
Okay, so less than I said. So three Ivica Zubac's.
Yeah.
Not 5.
I just got a feeling with him, as much as he could seem like a malcontent now, there have been a lot of issues there in Phoenix. I think.
Well, you're absolutely right, and they drug their feet on that extension. They really handled that.
They begrudgingly gave it to him.
They handled it
the Pacers match,
the absolute poorest of ways. And I think part of that was just the discontent from he's never going to be able to shake off the stink with that franchise from that draft, and knowing what was right there for you. And that's not his fault. That's not on him. There's nothing he can do about that. But I mean, that kind of thing stays with a guy, I think. And I think that does kind of permeate. And I mean, I'm sure he's heard stuff from fans and all sorts of stuff. Talking about Jonathan Isaac, though, man, the guy has played 45 games in the last 4 years.
Yeah, I also don't know if he's looked elite.
Jonathan Isaac is a good player. Yeah,
I don't know if he looks elite.
His defense is.
He's a great defender.
But I also like he's one of the few who's shown he can guard Giannis. I don't care who can guard Giannis when it comes to adding guys to the Clippers. Why would I care about that?
Yeah,
if he can guard Giannis,
if he can guard. Well, sure, but like I don't, and I get Jonathan Isaac. Jonathan Isaac off court brings your team some annoying stuff. For those of you who've kept up with it, he's a guy who brings stuff to the team outside of the court that I don't think the Clippers want.
Yeah, maybe he'll convert to the Church of Scientology and become like a huge movie star.
That would be sick. Good for him.
They got a lot of commercials lately.
Dude,
Yeah.
If you think you know about Scientology,
I'm pretty sure I know.
Let me tell
buddy.
you.
But yeah, I don't think they want a Fox News pundit on the team. Timmy Kang asks, do you think the answer to our athleticism at the 4 is putting Kawhi there? Since our defense is so switch heavy, he wouldn't have to always guard the 4 and can be switched onto a 3 for possessions to ease the load. We've talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think it matters.
I don't think it matters. Theoretically, we should be switching a bunch of stuff anyway. But in crunch time, he's going to guard whoever's the best player that night for the other team.
I think it matters to a point. I'm just not sure which position actually would be more beneficial when it comes to keeping Kawhi healthy. Is it less physical to move less but have to bang in the post versus being on the perimeter and moving a little bit more but playing against smaller guys?
Right.
I'm not sure. You had the stat, I think 30% of the time last season, was it around there, Chuck?
Like 25.
That he played.
Yeah. At the 4.
According to the position tracking data, which
is weird. Yeah.
Could be a little bit skewed. I heard Big Shot Bob Flom, Robert Flom, on the Lob the Jam the Pod made a good point that one of the advantages the Clippers have had with Kawhi at the 2 and Paul George at the 3 is that they're big for those positions.
Yeah, that's a huge 2 guard.
The difference is when he's at the 4, now he's small for that position. Like they're taking away some of those advantages of having them being bigger players at the 2 and the 3. If all of a sudden Kawhi is playing the 4 more.
It's just kind of what small forwards do, though. Like LeBron essentially shifted down in position. Like as you get older and a little less mobile, I'm of the opinion that I think it's a little bit just a number. I think you just need to have the most quality
positions.
player.
Ain't nothing but a number, man.
Unless, of course, we're talking about 3, 4, 5 guards. But I also think that that's one of those easy adjustments. Like you consolidate talent, you get a starting.
We still have to trade those guys out too. Like it's not like if Kawhi moved to the 4 that like Rocco, Morris, and Nico all of a sudden become totally fine and playable in the playoffs.
Yeah. So I mean, if you can trim some of the fat, get your best players on the floor as often as possible. Insert Terrence at the 2 if Russ stays. Kind of shift a little bit. I think that is one of those things that if you're looking at not making a big swing, that has to be on your mind. You have to say, like, how can we tweak this around the margins? How can we, better utilize what we've already got? Because it seems like for whatever reason in year, next year will be year 5, they're still kind of at the drawing board with it a little bit.
Yeah, they got to improve internally regardless of who if the big pieces are still there on the roster, regardless of what little moves they make this summer, they have to get better. Clips or Die says Musa at the 4 is the answer. LOL. Crying emoji face.
Let's do it.
Awesome if he was.
Yeah. God, would it be great if he was. Clips or Die. For those of you listening, Clips or Die sent us that on YouTube. We are on YouTube. You can find us at Clippers Podcast on YouTube. We got a couple more questions here. DJF Primal, shout out DJF Primal, longtime listener, wants to know very bluntly, how are the Clippers going to screw up their draft pick this year? The Clippers have the 30th and 48th pick.
Is that even possible, man?
Not exactly lighting it up.
Well, the fact that they already traded back, does that count as?
I don't know, man. So for those of you who don't know, I did 15 minutes of draft research and the Clippers and who they've talked to. UCLA star Yami Jaquez has been mocked to the Clippers a bunch of times. It's kind of where he's going to get drafted. They think he's in LA.
Jaime Jaquez, right?
Yeah. Why not take Jaime Jaquez? That makes sense. They've also have plans to work out or have talked to Craig Porter Jr., a multi-year point guard out of Wichita State, who's a streaky shooter, but does the little things well. Very, very much a Clippers draft pick, it feels like. Jordan Hawkins from UConn met with the Clippers. This was from the draft profile I read. He's one of the better three-point shooters in this draft class and is the best movement shooter. He's elite at coming off streams, catching and firing lasers from deep. He can handle his own defensively. Projected to be a lottery to mid-round first pick, though. Not sure he'd be there. And then Grant.
How's this guy falling to the Clippers? He's 6'2".
All right, at 30. Yeah. Yeah. And then Grant Nelson had a meeting with the Clippers. I don't know if you guys saw this guy. He went kind of viral. He goes to NDSU. He's like 6'11" and just has like crazy handle and can score at all three levels. Like you watch these highlights and it's like a guy who you're like, you maybe could have gone to a better school. Feels like a projected late first or early second round pick. It feels kind of like a guy the Clippers would take. He's a 6'11" guy who can handle. His highlights are pretty fun to watch.
Nelson with 30. He's available.
I'm fine with it, dude. Bring more, people from the middle, from Montana and North Dakota and states like that.
Well, I don't know about that.
But how are they going? Well, not North Dakota, but how are they going to screw it up, Adam?
By not trading the pick. If you're in win now mode, that is an asset. Use it to get a guy who's more ready to play now. I understand the thought of you want to take advantage when you do have first round picks currently, but they already, correct me if I'm wrong, this was going to be pick 18, but after the three-way trade with Memphis and Houston to get Eric Gordon and a couple of second round picks, they got bumped back to pick number 30. So I don't think they necessarily value
kind of stupid. Yeah.
Picks as much now in the 2-1-3 era because it's a championship or bust season every single year. And this is going to be year 5. So if somebody else really covers that 30th pick and they're trying to get a young player that they can mold when it's such a crapshoot in the draft, and I have looked this up and done the research before, but from 2006 to 2016, you had about a 5% chance of drafting an all-star. That's a 10-year period, 600 players drafted. About 5% of them became all-stars. Even if you're taking a top 10 guy, less than 25% of them became all-stars in a 10-year period. It's so difficult to draft. So whenever people go after the Clippers and how many guys they have missed on, it's like everybody is missing all the time. Again, if you're hitting 300, like at the plate in baseball, that's pretty good in the draft. You would sign up for that. And we just mentioned a guy who we all like in Moussa Diabate. And then you bring up Terrence Mann, who was drafted late, or Amir Coffey, Brandon Boston. Like they've gotten some value later in drafts before, so those second round picks could be put to use.
Here's how they do
those 4 guys.
Here's how
they do it. Will
they get the second coming of Terrence Mann? They get Terrence Mann 2, T2, the best Terminator, and he sits on the bench. He sits on the bench. Kawhi and Paul George both go down for extended stretches. He sees no increase in minutes.
That's a dystopian nightmare that I'm all too familiar with. Of the 4
they have
guys
the blueprint, man. They got the script.
They know how to do it. They drafted a guy they didn't know how tall he was. All right, everyone go watch those highlights. Watch the Grant Nelson highlights I put in the chat if you're watching us on YouTube. He's fun to watch. Then Chenny John, our last
do a full Nelson celebration. That'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, there's a clip of him grabbing the ref and going, "Oh, it's attack! Oh, it's attack!" And he's just kind of in the full Nelson. All right, last serious question before a break, and then we talk about some disturbing activity on the Clippers subreddit. Chenny John wants to know, with so many front office available talent, former finals head coaches, even Bob Myers, do we want to add anyone to the front office, or should we just chill? As right now, it's Lawrence Frank, Trent Redden, and Mark Hughes. Trent Redden's a talent guy. Mark Hughes came up from coaching. Should we just let's just chill for a sec, right?
If it's not an either or situation, I don't think there's any harm in adding someone to the front office. They bring their Rolodex. They have all these contacts. They have relationships with. I assume they bring over a physical Rolodex because they're old.
How old is this GM that we're adding? Are we adding like
Bob Myers is young?
Yeah, so it's not Bob Myers, it's his dad.
And has worked with Jerry West already.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, I think that it could. I think that it could work out. I still think there probably needs to be a clear pecking order, but that's for the org chart to decide, not for me.
Fuck the org chart. God, I hate the org chart. Adam, we know you. Adam wants to add any person with a pulse who has seen a basketball court to the front office.
Because I think Bob Myers would be a good ad. That means I won't just anybody.
No, you love
any bum off the street.
Yeah.
Who is the old Nets and Sixers guy? Billy King, was it? No, I don't want anybody. I don't.
know.
There have been a lot of bad GMs over the years, but Bob
Adam
Myers
wants to
has
bring
a
Bobby
proven
Marks
track
out of
record.
retirement.
Yeah. What about
Sam,
Hollinger?
You know what? Sam Hinkie was on to some things, guys.
Yeah, he had it all figured out.
All
right, coming up. Oh, go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
No, I'm interested in Bob Myers. If they can get him and there's not much downside, like Will was saying, if nobody else is taken out because of it, great. If not, you promote Trent Redden or Mark Hughes to GM.
Love it. Nothing wrong with that.
Bring in Trent Reznor.
Great soundtrack.
I'm in. What about this idea? This is a stupid idea. Why don't teams hire like a producer to be like, all right, you pick the sound for the night, like tonight's game, like the soundscape. So it'd be like Trent Reznor on the keys, like doing the like the Let's Go Clippers, but with like really dark tones or something like that. I'm into this idea. This is a good idea. DJ Mustard night at the Clippers game
from Gone Girl.
Yeah, that would rip, dude. All right, coming up we have
a lot of drone.
Yeah, a lot of drone. Coming up we have one more bonus question. Then we're talking Clippers subreddit behavior, which has been all over the place lately. But first, there's some ads. If they've been too loud for you, go ahead and turn it down. We're talking a goofy question and then disturbing behavior coming up in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back in Clips and Dip, episode 149. Is that what I heard earlier, or was it 159?
Correct. 149.
149. I'm Adam Oslin. We got Chuck Mockler, Will Updike, and hopefully you guys are watching us live, YouTube Live. We do them all the time now during the off season. We try to figure out how to expand our platform and use different ways to reach out to you guys. If you want to get to us at Clippers Pod later on Twitter and at Clippers Podcast on the YouTube. Before we get to a question that was directed at me, what's this more serious one here, Chuck?
Oh, yeah. So someone on the Clippers subreddit, clippers.com/r/LA Clippers, is catching birds and naming them after Clippers players. They've caught 3 small birds. They've named them Kawhi, PG, and Terrence Mann. Very weird. I'm not entirely sure how they're getting the birds. Where are we at on this behavior? Is this normal off-season behavior? Should we be concerned for Clippers fans? What are we thinking?
A little unhinged.
I think birds are more meant to be observed and enjoyed.
Yeah, let them fly.
I'm with it. One of them is real small. One of them's pretty like a nice blue one, but they have the caption "pain in the ass to catch." Don't catch the bird. The bird doesn't want to be caught.
I got
Birds
this
are
butterfly net, and I'm catching birds with it.
Yeah, like what are we? Also, you could get sick. You're just catching birds.
Guys, I caught this huge condor. It's the real Chuck the Condor.
Yeah, if I see him with a metal sheath and then a condor on it, I'll be on board with this. What insane hobbies are you guys going to pick up this offseason to compare with catching live birds? This is so weird. Adam, what are you going to start doing? Stealing people's shoes at the cryo lab?
Yeah, I already had weird hobbies before.
Yeah, you do cryo.
This Clippers season. I think I've kicked that to the curb finally. Eat healthier. That's going to be a weird hobby for me. Look, it's not as easy as you would think. I stopped drinking to be healthier, but all it's given me was a damn sweet tooth, and I'm ordering Ben and Jerry's nightly off of DoorDash. It costs like $25 for that little pint.
God, thank God you don't smoke weed, dude. That'd be a nightmare. Will, what is your terrifying behavior?
I don't know. I keep threatening that I'm gonna grow mushrooms in my house.
Like
not
psychedelic
even like
mushrooms?
Not even psychedelic mushrooms, like just food mushrooms. It's like I don't know how familiar.
That's weird.
I don't know how familiar you are, but they're like pretty expensive at the farmer's market. Like a little container is like $20 and they're delightful. I love them so much. But I think that'd be that's kind of unhinged behavior to cultivate a bunch of mushrooms, I think, in your apartment.
Would it make your apartment smell a bit?
I don't know. I would assume it would smell kind of earthy. Yeah.
Not a bad smell. No, that's a good one. I was threatening to get a goat the other day. I think getting a goat makes a lot of sense for my life right now. We got some green space. They eat trash. Oh, why not?
Every year, I threaten to get horrifyingly into Gundams, like just building Gunpla. I haven't quite pulled the trigger on it yet, but hey, man, another Clipper season like this last one, this might be a Gunpla pod.
Oh, another Clipper season like this one. I'm posting the birds that I've caught on this Clipper subreddit is what I'm doing, and I'm naming them after old GMs. Is what I'm going to do.
I am dangerously close to collecting Transformers figurines because I follow people who collect them on Twitter, and I'm envious at times. I want a Rodimus Prime.
I don't even know. Is that different from Optimus Prime?
Yeah, he's the one in the movie where they swear from 1986 and children ran out screaming because they killed Optimus Prime in it.
Oh, shit. Well, that sounds pretty rad, actually.
0 Fs.
All right, shout out to the person who's been catching those birds. Please wash your hands. Bonus question. This is from Chenny John. Shout out Chenny John. He said, how does Follow Adam A keep an off-season radio voice shape? Karaoke, Pee Wee League commentary, organic gargle wash? Adam, the people want to know, how do you stay in such good radio voice shape?
I don't think I do, honestly. I can lose my voice pretty easily.
humble.
Maybe I should start gargling glass like the lead singer from Cannibal Corpse or something like that. I should hang weights from my for my throat or something. I don't know.
I like where this is going.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm not the throat goat, guys. I'm not.
Okay. Yeah.
I hardly am able to keep a voice throughout the entire Clippers season. What else could that mean?
That's not what throat goat means, but I'm happy you don't identify as the throat goat. Will, do you have any off-season?
Nancy Reagan?
Yep. If you're on the YouTube live, you're learning a lot right now. Maybe if we had Patreon, we'd do a bonus episode explaining why Adam's name is not Nancy. Anything else we want to get out before we send these Clipper faithful on their way? Not Nancy or Will?
Is there a way to celebrate the Lakers getting swept without having a bunch of fans saying rent free, rent free? It's like, well, that. You come after me all the time. Like, of course I'm thinking about you guys.
Hey, man, they won that state championship. They played against the Warriors, you know?
That's a good point. They cut the nets and everything.
Yeah.
That was such a bad omen. That was like...
It was so bad.
Dude.
Like, let's do a T-shirt idea that no team has ever done before. That T-shirt has never existed for a professionals team at any league to be like, we're the state champs. Like, that's not how this shit works.
I mean, you talk about the Pac-Div champs all the time, though, Chuck.
Hey,
it's not that far off.
Pac-Div makes a whole lot of sense. Don't come at me about the Pac-Div, dude. Don't come at me about the Pac-Div. I will die for this division play.
My boss was asking me how they can make the regular season matter more, and I was like, let's make divisional play mean something.
You said, sir, can I block out 45 minutes at the end of the day to go over this? We should make a PowerPoint that we can just send to people on Twitter when they ask how to make it, just like a 12-slide thing of why division play should be more important. Do we want to say, all right, Will, where can these people find us? We're on YouTube right now at Clippers Podcast. Thanks for everyone who was hanging out. This is going to be live later, audio. Where can they find this audio?
Yeah, you can find this audio on Apple Podcasts. We're also on Spotify. You could rate or review us on either one of those platforms, which we'd really appreciate it. It's the off season. We need the content. We'll read your review on air. Come on. You can listen to us on either one of those platforms. We're also on Stitcher. We're on Deezer. We're on Amazon Music. We're on Google Podcasts. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can listen to the show. Chuck already mentioned it, but we are on YouTube at Clippers Podcast. We go live there. We also go live on Twitter. That's at Clippers Pod. So stay locked in. We got your off-season content coming. Mm-hmm. And if you're anything like us, things get a little weird in the off-season.
You could be catching birds.
And you're going to want to stay in for that.
You could be growing mushrooms. We don't know. We're going to be back next week, maybe with a guest. We'll get it figured out. Probably on Wednesday, something like that. R.I.P. Tina Turner. Shout out Tina Turner. She ruled. Yeah, R.I.P. Tina Turner. We'll be back next week for y'all. As always, hey, let's go Clips.
Let's go Clips. Forgot I